This guy you see on screen here in the corner is a guy named Mike Johnson. Now, he is a new evangelical that came on the scene very, very abruptly and suddenly. I didn't know anything about this guy, but out of the blue, he became Speaker of the House. So he's like third in the line of succession to become president. If the president dies, the vice president dies, this guy's next. He's calling the shots. So you could say he's like 2 heartbeats away from the presidency. But what's really relevant about this is the fact that he is about as extreme as it gets in evangelicalism. So I want to look at some of the things that he had to say. I don't think he's going to be in power forever, but seeing the arguments evangelicals lay down, whether they're in a position of power or not, is valuable in its own right, I think. So check out this clip from this guy where he comes out against pretty much everything. Evolution, no-fault divorce. God, I'm not going to spoil it. Just give this a listen.
Now, some of y'all were around in the late 60s. You remember that, what that was about. The countercultural revolution, Woodstock and drugs and peace and free love and all that, but more about the undermining of the foundations of religion and morality.
Right, so it was people just enjoying themselves in the 60s, the late 60s, just having a good time and realizing that, they don't have to do everything exactly as their parents said they should. They can live their own lives and enjoy themselves. Well, that's wrong. Apparently, you have to fall in line, do exactly as your parents say. Show up to church every Sunday, win souls for Jesus, and shut your mouth, I guess.
Because if you remember, in the late 60s, we invented things like no-fault divorce laws. We invented the sexual revolution.
Jesus, dude, no-fault divorce laws. If you don't know what no-fault divorce laws are, it's the idea that people can just get divorced because they want to get divorced. And you don't have to have some reason behind it. There are some states out there right now who will bar you from getting divorced unless there's a good, valid reason with proof and everything. It's a way to keep people subjugated to their partners, refusing to allow them to leave. No-fault divorce is part of gender freedom, for lack of a better term. It's part of raising women up to a position of equality. It's just like abortion is. They're not tied to this person or this thing or this lifestyle or whatever because a mistake was made or because somebody hurt them or for any reason at all. Women are free to make choices for their own lives. Not with no-fault divorce. It's just one more chip away at the pillar that is women's rights. Just one more chip, and he wants to get rid of no-fault divorce. Oh, and birth control. He doesn't like birth control either.
The sexual revolution. We invented radical feminism. We invented legalized abortion in 1973, where the state, the government...
I got bad news for you, bud. Abortion existed long before 73, actually. And to my knowledge, it wasn't illegal before 73. It was just solidified as legal at that time. Quick interjection. I won't take long. I just wanted to tell you guys, YouTube's algorithm operates off of a few factors. Watch time, whether or not you subscribe, and whether or not you like something. So if you really want to help my channel, I would appreciate it if you guys watch the video to the end. If you don't watch it to the end, just watch a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. I would appreciate that very much. All right, let's get back to the video.
Where the state, the government, sanctions the killing of the unborn. All these things happen because as collectively as Americans, we began to get together in growing numbers and thumb our nose at the Creator and say, we don't believe that anymore. We're rejecting the founders' natural law philosophy in favor of moral relativism, and we are going down another path. Now, what we tolerate in moderation, our children excuse in excess. What happens when you...
Wait, what does that mean? What we tolerate in moderation, our children excuse in excess? What does that mean? So, if we tolerate people being gay in moderation, just, don't kiss somebody or hold their hand in public. I guess that's tolerating in moderation. What we tolerate in moderation, our children excuse in excess. So, it's okay if they hold hands and kiss in public, we'll excuse that. Is that what he's saying? I think that's like the line of thinking that he's using right now. Well, I got bad news for you there, Mike. People are free to do what they want with their lives, or they, at the very least, should be. According to the UN Declaration of Human Rights, which is pretty comprehensive, reasonably, people should be allowed to live their lives, do what they want, and not be targeted for hate or harassment or prevented from doing what they want to do as long as it's not affecting somebody else negatively. But Mike here, being a constitutional lawyer and a scholar and an extremely educated person in this subject, apparently doesn't believe that people should have the right to live their own lives. Apparently doesn't stand for the values that the Constitution espouses.
Fast forward another 30 or 40 years. Well, here's a picture's worth 1,000 words. Go to the next one for me.
Oh my God, picture's worth 1,000 words, he says. The picture says, San Francisco atheists want choice? I mean, so I guess, what is this? Is this saying atheism exists, abortion exists, and then there's a picture of a cross? I don't understand what that means. Like, what is he so upset about here?
Let's go to the next one for me. I mean, we know that we're living in a completely amoral society. And so people say, how can a young person go into their schoolhouse and open fire on their classmates?
I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how a young person can do that. By going down to the gun shop. Hell, Walmart. Buying a gun with no waiting periods and no background checks and no nothings. Or hell, going down to a gun show. Just go to like a, what do you call it? Like an open air show where people are showing off their guns and stuff, and just go buy one there. Or find a gun that's laying in your dad's closet or dresser or whatever, because everybody from here to Texas has 16 guns. There's a gun behind every blade of grass in the United States, and it's really, really easy to access one if you're a young kid. That's how. He asked how a kid can do it. We know how. They just go buy them, or they just grab their parents. Is he going to address the fact that there are too many guns floating around society right now in the United States? Too many? Is he going to address that? Or is he going to blame who he has on screen here? Atheists? Abortionists? Is this sounding familiar? Jerry Falwell Sr. said this exact same thing after 9/11. God allowed 9/11 to happen to America because we have feminism in America, because we have abortion and atheism and stuff. God's punishing us for having those things. For people being allowed to make free choice, God's punishing us. This dude is psychotic. Okay, tell me how kids do that, Mike.
In a completely amoral society. And so people say, how can a young person go into their schoolhouse and open fire on their classmates? Because we've taught a whole generation, a couple of generations now of Americans, that there is no right and wrong.
Okay, nobody is taught anything like that, but you know what? Why is it any of your goddamn business what a parent teaches their kid? I thought you were all about parents' rights and all that stuff. Now, he's not for parents' rights, never was. You know what he's in favor of? Accomplishing his goal of enforcing his beliefs on other people around him. That's what he's in favor of. He doesn't care if there are Muslims in the country or Hindu or Buddhists or whatever. He doesn't care. They will all be Christian or they will all be dead. Seems to be the view that this guy takes.
That it's about survival of the fittest, and you evolve from the primordial slime. Why is that life of any sacred value? Because there's nobody sacred to whom it's owed.
Okay, that's a complete bastardization of what people to the left of hunting the homeless for sport believe, unlike this guy. But okay, go on.
None of this should surprise us. And it leads in the next slide for me, it leads into just chaos.
I thought it said tooth decay. Okay, wow. Well, you know, truth decay isn't quite as bad as tooth decay. I'll take truth decay over tooth decay any day. So there's that. This guy is insane. And he's the Speaker of the House right now. May not be in a week, may not be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, I don't know. But the fact is, people like this guy, people like Mike Johnson, are in there. They're in positions of power. I'd never heard of the dude before he became Speaker of the House. But that fact should reveal to you that there are 1 billion people out there, in Congress specifically. Well, there are 538 members of Congress total. 438, I believe, are from the House of Representatives, and then 100 are senators or something like that. 438 or so House members. in there. How many of those House members are like this guy right here? Mike Johnson is a step past what most people would publicly say. He just comes out with it. His wife couldn't make it to his, I don't know what you call it, his coronation, his swearing in or whatever, as Speaker of the House. So he tried to give an explanation of why she couldn't be there for this. October 25th, 2023.
She spent the last couple of weeks on her knees in prayer to the Lord, and she's a little worn out.
She didn't want to be there, did she, Mike? I got to tell you, man, I don't believe that she spent the last couple of weeks on her knees in prayer to Jesus, first of all. Second, if she did, she needs help desperately. And third, why is it that these people constantly use obviously terrible euphemisms and hand signs and things like that? Why are they always talking about being strong on their knees? Lauren Boebert has said this exact thing. I'm stronger on my knees than something, whatever. I don't even know. And then there's this guy. He's a, you can't really make it out because it's really grainy, but he's a domestic terrorist that was a member of Congress and was removed from his position as a member of Congress for sedition, basically. He was feeding information to people who were battling the U.S. government directly. Anyway, domestic terrorism is what he was charged with, I think, officially. And bizarrely, I mean, he's a Christian extremist, of course, and bizarrely, you see the crowd making the weirdest hand signs. Just watch this.
Give them courage, your courage, to stand on the foundation, the rock, Jesus Christ.
Okay, why are people doing the Hitler salute? These are Christians. Why'd they pick that hand sign? Couldn't Christians have picked anything else? I will take anything other than the Hitler salute. Why is it that they're constantly talking about being strongest on their knees? Please. You are setting yourself up for jokes here, okay? Anyway, the fascinating thing about Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House, is that some of the Trump prophets, namely Shane Vaughn, dude believes that Trump is the son of man that's going to spark Armageddon or whatever other thing. He's basically taking Jesus' spot. He's the second coming, effectively. He believes that of Trump. He claims to have received divine prophecy from God that Jim Jordan was going to be the next House Speaker. Oopsie daisy. Looks like, yeah, this dude's just picking those oopsie daisies all day, every day, seemingly. So he comes out here and makes a prediction. Listen to this. Mid-October 2023. I'm sorry. Prophecy, not prediction. Prophecy.
Just hours ago, Jim Jordan was nominated to be the next Speaker of the House.
Of course, this is like long before Mike Johnson was nominated.
Now, this spells major trouble for the Democrats. So let me just sing my little song real quick. I told you so.
Of course he was wrong, so this song means nothing. Okay, go ahead, sing it, Shane.
Oh, I told you so. You know why?
Tell me, Shane, why?
Because Professor Toto,
that's what he calls himself,
many times can see the news behind the news.
Because you're divinely ordained, right? God has given you the power to see this stuff.
And this was Yahweh's plan from the beginning. Kevin McCarthy got in the way, but Donald Trump removed Kevin McCarthy. Today, Jim...
You catch that? This was Yahweh's plan. Kevin McCarthy got in the way, so Donald Trump removed him. Because Trump is some anointed, special character in his theology. Seriously.
Today, Jim Jordan is preparing to step in as leader and Speaker of the House of Representatives. He is the proxy of Donald Trump. Literally, Donald Trump is the Speaker of the House. We've had a...
Dude, I love how wrong this guy is. I'm just eating this up for real. This is so fantastic, right? He had no idea what he's talking about, and he was so confidently claiming that he did.
We've had a great victory today, a great victory. Jim Jordan will be the next Speaker of the House.
No.
Just as Professor Toto told you so. Oh, I told you so. I told you so. Yes, I told you so.
Go ahead, continue. Don't let me stop you. Anyway, God, it's so stupid, man. It is so ridiculous on every level. It's an embarrassment, seriously. How does this guy get up and face people after making a false prediction like this? I'm sorry, not even a prediction. How does he face people after making a failed prophecy like this? Really? Well, I'll tell you how he faces people after doing that. He just comes out here and does it. Late October 2023, this is after Mike Johnson won the speaker's position, and Jim Jordan unequivocally lost it. This is what he had to say. Check it out. This is his eating crow moment, I suppose you'd say.
Mike Johnson is Jim Jordan because...
No, Mike Johnson is Mike Johnson, and Jim Jordan is Jim Jordan, Shane, okay? You failed. You claimed to be speaking from God, and you lied. You know, the Bible has a specific prescription for people who do that. Not that I stand for it. I'm just saying the Bible has a specific description of what's supposed to happen when somebody does that and how to tell that they're falsely prophesying.
Because he is Jim Jordan's protege. We all wanted Jim Jordan, but
I don't think we all did. Look at this. He's got a little Jewish scarf in the corner here. That's crazy. Why does a Christian have one of those? That doesn't make any sense.
But the difference in Mike and Jim is that Jim has a lot of haters, a lot more haters than Mike Johnson has, only because Jim Jordan has been in the limelight and the spotlight, whereas Mike Jordan has not been.
No, I suppose that Jim Jordan has been in the spotlight, and people have had an opportunity to see who he really is, because he's shown us. You know, he has backed Donald Trump to his dying breath in disturbing, disgusting, horrific ways. As it turns out, Mike Johnson has done the same thing. He will do the same thing. Stand loyal to Donald Trump. But he doesn't have a bad reputation yet. He doesn't have... people didn't even know who he was, so no one had time to, find out what he believes and what he's espoused and all of that stuff, you know?
So everyone that was for Jim Jordan, myself included, you can be happy because Mike Johnson is Jim Jordan. He tells everyone that Jim Jordan is his mentor, and anytime someone's your mentor, then you become a duplicate of them.
No. What are you talking about? This is insane. You become a duplicate of your mentor? You shouldn't be a duplicate of anybody. That's what cults do. They create clones. They create duplicates. What is wrong with this guy? Seriously. I don't know who is more unhinged from reality right now. Mike Johnson? I keep wanting to say Mike Jones. Mike Johnson or Shane Vaughn? Tell me in the comments, which one is more unglued from reality? Shane Vaughn or Mike Johnson? Let's listen to one more line from Mike Johnson for good measure so you know who we're dealing with right now. Late October 2023.
And that's why it's so jarring to be sitting in the greatest deliberative body in the world, the United States Congress, and to hear elected representatives of the people. You know, every member of Congress, every member of the House represents roughly 760,000 citizens, right? So there's a singular voice on behalf of all those people, and some of these voices now are in this chamber arguing that our rights do not come from God.
Okay, wait a minute. People are arguing in the House chamber that our rights don't come from God? Who? When? Tell me when this happened. Who is arguing this? Give me the information. We'll take a look. I don't believe you. I think this guy is lying through his teeth. I don't ever remember a time when Democrats have opposed religion in government or whatever, at all. Opposed religion in any way, honestly. I don't remember that ever happening. But for the record, our rights don't come from God. The point of that line in the Declaration of Independence, our God-given rights, was to say our rights come from outside of government. Government doesn't grant these rights to us. We have them by default. That's the point. It's not a right that government grants you, and it's not something they can take. Government is not allowing me to speak my mind. I'm speaking my mind. Government is barred from stopping me, basically. That's the idea. I don't know what people he thinks are arguing with that, but okay, go on.
That our rights do not come from God. Think about how scary that is. If you believe your rights come from government.
Okay, now wait a second. They didn't say their rights came from government. They said the rights didn't come from God. That's different. And also, who are these people? Who are you talking about right now?
Then it means you don't really owe any allegiance at all to God.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that'd be scary, huh? Not owing allegiance to God? Imagine.
At all to God.
Yeah.
You have no accountability.
Well, you're
him.
not free.
You're not free.
Oh, I guess being a slave to Jesus makes you free. Okay, that's new. I hadn't heard that one.
Because the people who are governing you and giving you things, in exchange for those things, always comes a sacrifice of your liberty.
Absolutely.
Okay, wait a minute. So things that you're being given, you have to lose liberty to receive? That doesn't even make sense. I pay into Social Security. At the end of my life, I should get Social Security money back. That's not me getting free stuff. That's me paying for something and getting the money back, getting a return on it. Government doesn't give anything out for free. It's paid for by taxpayers. I have no clue what he's going on about right now. Like, he's trying to twist this into some kind of a far-right argument, but he's like failing miserably and just making himself look like a complete nutcase. Look like the nutcase that he actually is. Jesus, dude. This guy's insane. I've played like surface level stuff from this guy, okay? I haven't even scratched the surface with this. Politico has an article titled 55 Things You Need to Know About Mike Johnson. We'll just kind of skim through a few of them, okay? Johnson once said, "All I ever aspired to be was a fireman." Number 2, his father was a firefighter in Shreveport and suffered burns over 80% of his body in 1984. Oh, God, that sucks. In an explosion that killed a fire captain. Johnson was 12. His parents, he is recalled, wouldn't let us be firemen after that. Oh. I saw an actual miracle of my father surviving when they said that he shouldn't, he said. It made me a person of very deep faith. No, you know what made you a person of very deep faith? The extremists around you that were trying to brainwash you into it. That's what. He was elected in 2015, unopposed, in a special election to the Louisiana House of Representatives, serving parts of 2 incomplete terms. So he's like super inexperienced. Interesting. He was elected in 2016 in a runoff to represent Louisiana's 4th district in the U.S. House of Representatives. So he's like barely in the House of Representatives. Okay. He is the least experienced Speaker of the House in 140 years. He was the 4th nominee for the job after the ouster of Kevin McCarthy. He earned an undergraduate business degree in 1995 from Louisiana State University, where he was Public Relations Director of Kappa Sigma Fraternity. He received his law degree in 1998 from LSU. Wow, okay, so he's a lawyer. He received his law degree. Interesting. He married the former Kelly Larry in 1999 in a covenant marriage, kind of marriage that makes it harder to get a divorce. I didn't know there was such a thing as a covenant marriage. What the hell is a covenant marriage? I didn't know people could get a covenant marriage. Is that a thing in the United States? Covenant marriages require premarital counseling as well as counseling prior to filing for divorce. And parties in a covenant marriage may only seek legal separation or divorce for limited reasons. What? Why does covenant marriage exist? It's a legally distinct kind of marriage in 3 states, Arizona, Arkansas, and Louisiana. There you go, he's in Louisiana. In which marrying spouses agree to obtain premarital counseling and accept more limited grounds for seeking divorce. The least strict of which being the couple lives apart from each other for 2 years. Why does this exist? This should not exist. So he married somebody in a covenant marriage. My God. Is he still married to her, I wonder? Yes. He is still married to her, apparently. 1999. Wow, he's been married to her for 24 years. Okay. My wife and I both come from traditional Christian households, he once said. My own parents are divorced. As anyone who goes through that knows, that was a traumatic thing for our whole family. I'm a big proponent of marriage and fidelity and all the things that go with it. Two-parent households perform better. They have better outcomes for the children. That's true. But you know what has an even worse outcome than a family where the parents get divorced? A family where one of the parents is terribly abusive and they don't get divorced. That's pretty terrible for everybody. You shouldn't stay in a marriage or relationship or whatever simply for the sake of staying in. That makes things so much worse. He and his wife appeared on ABC's Good Morning America to support Louisiana's newly passed marriage covenant law. My God, dude, what is this marriage covenant stuff? Mike Johnson molds Republican messaging as fifth. Oh my God, no more pop-ups, please. No pop-ups. Anyway, the point is he's a fan of covenant marriage. She's a former school teacher and a licensed pastoral counselor. They have 4 children, 2 daughters and 2 sons. That's his wife, I guess. Okay, there should not be such a term as pastoral counselor. Either there's a therapist that's licensed by the state, or hell, that's it. You shouldn't be going to pastoral counselors for anything. You should be going to licensed therapists, licensed by the state. They also have a podcast called Truth Be Told. Oh, God. Mike Johnson has a podcast. You know what? I'm going to write that down. Maybe I'll take a look at it later. Truth Be Told. Oh, yes. I am hitting that at some point. That, I bet anything, that is absolutely psychotic. Before he ran for office, Mike Johnson was a litigator for conservative causes, such as the Alliance Defending Freedom, for 2 decades. Wow, he's a litigator. That's interesting. There are different categories of law, basically. Policy, litigation, and, well, primarily policy and litigation in certain areas, like public interest. So he was a litigator. That's actually very, very hard to be a litigator, I understand. From 2004 to 2012, Johnson served as a trustee of the Southern Baptist Convention's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. Really? He was in charge of ethics for the Southern Baptist Convention. Huh. How about that? As a lawyer for the Alliance Defense Fund, the precursor of the Alliance Defending Freedom, Johnson wrote editorials for his local paper that called homosexuality inherently unnatural. Your race, creed, and sex are what you are, while homosexuality and cross-dressing are things you do, he wrote. This is a free country, but we don't give special protections for every person's bizarre choices. Fascinating. Well, the dude doesn't even believe it's a free country, actually. He has a vested interest in forcing people into the box that he wants them to be in. He's an ardent opponent of same-sex marriage. In the Louisiana House, he proposed a Marriage and Conscience Act, preventing adverse treatment by the state of anyone based on their views on marriage. The bill, in view of the critics, protects people who discriminate against same-sex couples. Protecting discrimination. That's what this dude did when he was in office in Louisiana. He defended Louisiana's same-sex marriage ban before the Supreme Court in 2004 and again in 2014. Wow. So he was one of the litigators that argued against same-sex marriage in front of the Supreme Court. He's extremely influential. He was quiet, he was in the background, nobody knew who he was, but he was one of those extremely influential people. You know another person that's extremely influential in that same way and doesn't like to have attention drawn to him by the other side? David Barton. David Barton is actually revered by Mike Johnson, as a matter of fact, the guy that we're talking about right now. David Barton is basically the source of pretty much all of the extreme nonsense you hear coming out of the far right. He came up with a lot of that propaganda. He claims to be a constitutional scholar. He is not. He doesn't have a degree in this at all. I think he has like a theology degree, 4-year degree from Oral Roberts University or something like that. Not an expert in anything by any stretch of the imagination, but this is him, David Barton. in the intervening years, he built up this public presence for himself among evangelicals, came up with propaganda techniques, and tried to radicalize every church that he visited. He claimed that there was something called the Black Robe Regiment. Back in the 1700s, when the U.S. was fighting for freedom, these Black Robe Regiment people were pastors who were militarizing their churches. After the service, they would give them guns and they would train them on how to use them and everything, and then they would go to war against the British for American independence. As it turns out, that's all fake. It's completely made up by David Barton, this guy. And Mike Johnson is a massive fan of the guy. Talks about him all the time. Talks about the ideas that he has espoused. Interestingly enough, actually, David Barton is also in control of a Donald Trump super PAC. It was a PAC for Ted Cruz, and when Cruz lost the primary in 2016 against Trump, the PAC went to Donald Trump, and David Barton was at the head, fascinatingly. Anyway, Jesus Christ, dude. Mike Johnson's got problems for real. Throughout his career, Mike Johnson authored many bills aiming to restrict abortion access, including the Unborn Child Protection from Dismemberment Abortion Act. Really? The Second Chance at Life Act regarding reversing medical abortions, and the Protect the Unborn Act. It's just whacked out, dude. I don't even know what else to call this. He led a life march of some 7,000 people in Shreveport, Bossier City in 2015 and again in 2016. He was in Congress by then, I believe. He opposes the legislation of marijuana, even medical marijuana, having called it a gateway drug. Really? You know how you take the wind out of the sails of a gateway drug? You know how you remove the gateway part of it so that it's not a gateway drug anymore? You legalize it. No, like, facts and information and logic mean nothing to this dude. There's nothing that's piercing this thick skull of his. We're the first country in the world who said our rights aren't derived by a king, but by our creator. Well, it's interesting. That's what I was talking about earlier. It's not that they're not derived by a king, but by our creator. It's that they come from outside government. Our rights are inherent to our existence. We have these rights by default. Government doesn't grant them to us. That's what that means. He said in co-authoring a bill that asked that the state's elementary school students memorize and recite a portion of the Declaration of Independence. The bill received considerable support in the Louisiana House, but never made it past Senate committees. Oh, thank shit, dude. This is crazy. I'm sorry. I swear a lot sometimes. I'll mute that out. He was among a vast majority of lawmakers who voted to discourage the state's law enforcement and government agencies from working with the Council on American Islamic Relations, a Muslim civil rights organization. Wow. He didn't even want to work with the Council on American Islamic Relations. He said the effort was aimed against people who believed in the Islamic faith, but simply was about opposing terrorism. All of us here are opposed to terrorism, he said, according to the Associated Press at the time. That's all this is about. Okay, wow. Number 26. In 2016, he won his seat in the northwest corner of the state by more than 30 points against a pro-life, pro-gun Democrat. Wow, that's surprising. Okay. As a matter of practicality and constitutional principle, the federal government should only be involved in disaster recovery when the scope of a disaster is so catastrophic that it overwhelms the capabilities of state and local governments. Bro, what do you think the government does? Do you think the government is out here just helping people all willy-nilly? Like, whatever, you know what? See a homeless guy on the street? Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me offer you some help. You think the government's out here doing that? Really? I'd love it if that was happening. It's not. So he argued that the government shouldn't get involved when there was support for lobbying for aid for disaster relief in the wake of recent flooding in the Shreveport area where he's from, I guess. Allowing a lower standard for federal funding is simply unsustainable because it creates an incentive for state governments to seek aid for even small routine events. This is a joke, dude. In terms of financial assistance from the federal government, there's no doubt that that will be necessary, he said the following summer as Hurricane Harvey headed toward Louisiana. Convenient. Curious. He needed help for his state, and suddenly he's all about federal aid, federal assistance. A climate science skeptic, he's raked in more campaign cash in his congressional career from the oil and gas industry than any other industry, and he's repeatedly downplayed climate change, according to E&E. Weird. How about that? Think maybe there's some connection there? Just tossing it out. In 2017, Johnson supported Trump's Muslim ban executive order, which restricted travel to the U.S. from 7 predominantly Muslim countries. I remember that. Simply because they were Muslim, Trump is trying to ban them from coming in. It's right in the Constitution. There will be no religious test. I don't know how you make that any clearer. But he was apparently in favor of it, right? Because he's a Christian nationalist extremist at heart. That's what he believes in. That's what he does. That's what he loves. This is not an effort to ban any religion, but rather an effort to adequately protect our homeland. We live in a dangerous world, and this important measure will help us balance freedom and security, Johnson said of the order. Come up with any excuse to be bigoted against a demographic of people. In 2018, Johnson was one of a group of Republicans arguing for student-led prayer and religious expression in public schools under the First Amendment. This is Christian nationalism clear as day, right? I don't know how else to interpret this. He's currently serving his second term as vice chair of the House Republican Conference and serves on the House Judiciary Committee. Oh, God, the Judiciary Committee? What do they do on the Judiciary Committee? Let's find out. No need to wonder. Just loaded up our question guns. Let's go answer hunting. In addition to its role in conducting oversight and consideration of nominations, the Senate Judiciary Committee also considers legislation, resolutions, messages, petitions, memorials, and other matters as provided for in the standing rules of the Senate. Okay. So basically, judicial appointments. That's pretty much what he does. Wow. Jesus, dude. Johnson, who sits on the House Armed Services Committee, supports ending American military aid in Ukraine during its war with Russia. Of course. Why would I expect any differently from this guy? He's rated as the 27th most effective Republican member of Congress by the Center for Effective Lawmaking at Vanderbilt. That's insane. Reason enough to do everything we can to remove him from Congress by voting against him. He's in Louisiana, right? What district is he in? He's in Louisiana's 4th district since 2017. House interactive map. Let's look at the 2022 House map. If you guys never been to this website, it's actually extremely useful. It's called 270towin.com. It shows you an interactive map of every district, everything, everywhere. And you can look at the House votes, the Senate votes, and the presidential vote. And this is like a map of the House in 2024. Right now, it looks like there are 25 House seats up for grabs that are in contested districts. Democrats a little bit behind at 203, most likely 203 seats, and Republicans at 207 with those 25 contested seats. So his is Louisiana District 4. Mississippi, here it is. This is him right here, this one. This big district right here that I have my mouse over. Can I, wait, full size? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so this one, it's this district right here. And it looks like it's solidly red. That website is based on polls that have been taken, so he's looking really strong for re-election in 2024, sadly. Solid Republican. We got to get out there and vote, guys. He was part of Trump's inner circle and traveled regularly with him on Air Force One while he was president. It's surreal, he once told the Shreveport Reporter. When I call him, he calls back within a couple of hours. He was an eager backer of the nomination of the Supreme Court of Amy Coney Barrett, a friend since 1988. Wow, he's friends with Amy Coney Barrett since 88. That's crazy. I've just called President Trump to say this. Stay strong and keep fighting, sir. The nation is depending upon your resolve. We must exhaust every available legal remedy to restore Americans' trust in fairness of our election system. He posted on social media 4 days after the election in 2020. So he's an election denier. He was lead organizer of the December 2020 amicus brief in support of Texas v. Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court lawsuit contesting the election results. So an amicus brief is kind of an argument that you submit to a court ahead of the court deliberations or proceedings or whatever. People send in amicus briefs, and depending on how influential and well-known and reliable those people are, or those organizations are, their amicus briefs, their arguments will likely make it closer to the top of the pile and be sorted by aides, and then the best ones will probably be given to the justices or the judges or the whoever it is. Magistrates, I guess, probably do that too. I don't know. Anyway, that's what an amicus brief is. So he was the lead organizer of the amicus brief for Texas v. Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court lawsuit contesting the election results. I don't see a grand conspiracy, he said in the middle of that month. What I see is a lot of chaos and confusion across the land, and the result is that this election will have this giant question mark hanging over it. I saw a new poll. A huge amount of the country doubts the election and thinks it was stolen from Donald Trump. Right, because polls are always 100% correct, absolutely. That's smart thinking there, Mike. A huge amount of the country doubts the election and thinks it was stolen from Trump. 36% of registered voters in America believe the election was stolen. That is a problem. Whether it was stolen or not, the fact that such a huge swath of the country believes that is something that should keep all of us up at night. Oh, it does. It does. And I am a lawyer. I don't engage in conspiracy theory. I want to deal in fact and truth, he added. Really? Could have fooled me. Knocked me over with a feather. Trump, he believes, is an institutionalist. No, Trump is a Trumpist. He'll do whatever it takes to further his own goals and interests, actually. But okay. He doesn't articulate it in the same way that some old constitutional law nerds would, he said, but that's what he is. Insane. On January 6th, Johnson voted against certifying the 2020 election. Why am I not surprised? Here's point number 46. As a member of the House Judiciary Committee, Johnson was one of Trump's fiercest defenders in his impeachment hearings, leading Trump to include him in his defense team for the Senate impeachment trial, in which he was acquitted. About this, Johnson said, his ultimate gesture of trust was asking me to serve on the impeachment defense team. It was an extraordinary experience. I mean, Trump was guaranteed to be acquitted anyways, because on both of his impeachment hearings. In the Senate, eventually he was going to be acquitted because it was controlled by Republicans, and you need a really high bar to get removed from office in an impeachment. You need 2/3 of the senators, I believe, to vote against you. And that's just never going to happen, that kind of split in the Senate. Not anytime soon, in my opinion. Number 47, Johnson, along with all other House Republican leaders in 2021, voted against establishing a national commission to investigate the January 6th insurrection. Why am I not surprised by that one either? Johnson had been floated as Speaker before. In 2022, Representative Andy Biggs, who is the head of the Freedom Caucus, the extremists, I believe, proposed Johnson as Speaker over Kevin McCarthy. After the House voted to remove McCarthy as Speaker earlier this month, Florida Representative Matt Gaetz showed his support for Johnson as a candidate. I don't know how the dude came out of left field. Nobody saw this coming. Number 49, running for Congress in 2016, he signed the Congressional Term Limits Pledge of the organization called U.S. Term Limits. I pledge that as a member of Congress, I will co-sponsor the vote for the U.S. Term Limits Amendment of 3 House terms. I love it. Yes. Let's have that. 3 House terms. That's 6 years you get in the House of Representatives. That means this dude should be gone now, right? He was elected in 2017. So 2019, 2021, 2024. He shouldn't be running again, right? He should be done. How much you want to bet he's going to reverse course on that one? He's in his 4th term. Oh, he's already in his 4th term. I thought he was in his 3rd term. Hypocrisy knows no bounds. They don't care. Influence and access is everything in Washington, he said in early 2020. Oh, I'm sure, no doubt. The reason I worked hard to be at the leadership table is because I want to help develop what the overall message is. Johnson has said of his leadership style, if you're not at the leadership table, you pretty much have to be a team player and go along with it. I like the kids' table better. Kids' table is fun, and that's where all the cool people are. Number 53 of 56. He recently led a hearing on limiting gender-affirming care. Again, why am I not surprised by this? Sex isn't something you're assigned at birth. Yes, it is. What are you talking about? It is a prenatal development that occurs when every unborn child is in its mother's womb. Okay, I suppose, but it's assigned once you're born. They put it on the piece of paper. You can't surgically free yourself or someone else from this fact of life. You know what? Maybe you can't. But what if you could? Would you feel the same? What if one day we are capable of changing our sex, like actually changing the chromosomes and the everything? Take a pill, and now you're the exact opposite sex that you were before. What then? Would he endorse the existence of the pill, or would he oppose it? Would he show bigotry against people who take it? Of course he would. The argument isn't about, they can't change their sex that they have right now. It's immutable, blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. They don't even care about that. If it was an option, they would still hate trans people. Today, nearly 1 in 4 high school students identifies as LGBTQ. Okay, I don't know if that's even true, but sure, okay, so what? Who cares? Whether it's by scalpel or by social coercion from teachers, professors, he thinks that teachers are coercing students to be trans. What? Or gay? And left-wing media, it's an attempt to transition the young people of our country. Something has gone terribly wrong. This dude lives in a fantasy land, man, for real. This is number 54. I think he's going to be a fantastic speaker, Trump said Wednesday at the courthouse in New York, where he's on trial for business fraud. Okay, fair enough. That's true. Number 55. If you don't... Oh, I thought there were 56 for some reason. This is the final one. If you don't think that moving from Kevin McCarthy to MAGA Mike Johnson shows the ascendance of this movement and where the power in the Republican Party truly lies, Gates said Wednesday morning on Steve Bannon's podcast, then you're not paying attention. That's a good point. I can appreciate that point. MAGA has taken the reins of power. They are an extremely small minority. They do not represent almost anybody in America. It's a very small grouping, but they're throwing their weight around and forcing people to bend to their will. Anyway, this guy's nuts. Like I said, he's not very well known, and maybe he'll just disappear eventually. I don't know. Maybe he'll just, he'll be voted out as speaker, and then he'll lose his election. Who knows? Who knows for sure? I don't know. But he's representative of a lot of people in the Republican Party right now, and it needs to be addressed. Let me know what you think about it in the comments.